I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today. We're here with Peter Bernstein for a short interview because I want to. We're starting a little series about pedals, people that use pedals, people that don't use pedals, to pedal or not to pedal. That that is the question. So I'm going to be interviewing about 10 guys, 10 people, guys and women, guys and girls on the subject. Some I know do use, some I know don't. Some are vehemently opposed, and some are avid users.
Right.
Uh, and so,
Totally subjective.
totally, yeah, totally subjective, and
Yeah.
it's all valid. There's no right or wrong here. It's just the way you go about your business. So, with that being said, Peter, you're one of the top guys in the freaking world. I mean, when I talk to people about jazz guitarists and your name is always brought up as a guy that's on the scene today. I mean, the first thing that happens is they go to Joe Pass and they, all the guys that from Wes and all that.
Of
But when
course.
we start
They
talking about, the contemporary guys, and you're one of the guys. So we're honored that you're here with us today.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Now,
I'm lucky to be still at it and still able to do it and get better and or try to get better. And what can I say to that?
here's to you, my friend.
Exactly. Yes.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
so love more. I love it. That's great.
Got my cold coffee. Yeah. Love more. Yeah.
So currently,
Yeah.
when you go to the gig, you take your guitar,
I do.
you take your amp, or an amp is there.
Rarely, but
Yeah.
yeah, I will take an amp.
Yeah.
Whatever amp is there, I just plug right into it. I make sure I
Right.
bring cables, and
And
that's it.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you are not a pedal user.
I'm not a pedal user, and I was relieved to hear you say I'm talking to some people that use them and some people that don't. So I don't want to be the one guy.
Oh,
I don't want to be like because and you said people are vehemently opposed. I wouldn't be vehemently opposed to anything. I mean, because it's all subjective and it's whatever you want to do. That's the whole point of this
right.
whole thing. That's the whole point of the freedom to improvise and the freedom to like play in ensemble situations where people are supposed to both blend in and stand out. That's the challenge of jazz. Is like be part of this collective sound, but there's no limit to how much you can try to be. So that's the beauty of it. And I realize that the more I find myself in teaching situations that some people are gifted and they get down a thing like where they're just like, I'm going to sound like this guy, or I'm going to sound like, you know, and they just do that and they're great at it. And it's just like they love the challenge of playing an instrument, but at the same time, the freedom to be whatever you want to be is something they're not necessarily comfortable with. So it doesn't even make you a bad musician. It's just like people play who they are and how much, comfort they have, stepping out and being themselves. That's what I realized. I mean, my personal challenge is just to try to come through all my influences and the things that I love and the things that make me want to play and the things that inspire me, and try to find something that's a blend that's personal. And I've been doing it long enough now. I can catch myself when I play somebody else's stuff or when I dip into a certain bag. I mean, I'm not fooling myself, and so it's just a challenge to try to develop the stuff that's yours and slowly, uh, you know, digest and then kind of have that all your influences come out in a unique way. And the more I listen to, I hear my influences having done that. I hear Jackie McLean and like, wow, there's so much Bird, and there's also a lot of Dexter Gordon, and just different, just noticing different things about how they absorbed things and still became their own person. And that's the beautiful thing. So to your topic of pedals, I really think it's a subjective. It's what you want. The guitar, there's lots of things available to us, and just like anything else, some people are going to take full advantage of the full array, and some people are going to just be like, nah, it's not for me. So, and I think either one of those choices doesn't make you conservative or necessarily cutting edge. It's just like that. The proof is in the pudding.
Right.
So the tools are just what you use, and it's just what you're comfortable with as you go along your journey to find a sound.
Did you ever experiment with them?
I did. I have a couple of pedals, and I did have one of those Line 6 that has lots of different things you can do and loop it, and all kinds of different. And I would mess around with it, and I had a lot of fun with it, and just like playing different sounds and kind of hearing the stuff. But in the end, for me, it just kind of affected the way the note came out. It affected which is what it's supposed to do, but it did it in a way that I didn't feel. It just didn't attract me as a way of, and I didn't think of like, well, I'm in certain musical situations where I need this sound. Like I always come away from that thinking like, if I could play some music that came from a sound that
Right.
this is, that would be different. But to put that on a sound, just as like, I don't like my sound, so I need to, do some stuff to it and enhance it or disguise it. It's all depending on your perspective. So I just never found myself in a situation where I was, involved in music that needed that sound. I did use a wah-wah pedal on some gigs and like certain things. I messed around with a couple of things, and I mean that's already retro. So, but I just didn't like what it did to the attack and how the note came out. There's a certain kind of a tracking thing that it's a digital thing. You're putting something through a digital enhancement, and I wasn't comfortable with it, and I just never was, drawn to some feeling like I have to learn how to use this pedal. I have to modernize I never felt that compulsion. So, I did feel a compulsion to do other things. So that's that's what I did. They didn't involve pedals. As long as I was compelled to learn about music, I wasn't concerned whether I was. And the more guys around me that I saw using pedals, and the more it became the sound, and even lots of people's groups kind of involved a guitar that could create atmospheric kind of
Right.
effects, whereas they used to have keyboards for that. Now you get a guitar to give that kind of, put that electronic shimmering or various things. It's all in the hands of the person that's using it. There's no limitation to the sounds you can get. And I've seen people use them to incredibly great creative results, like Bill Frisell's. Like, he creates complete sonic landscapes and like whole narratives based on controlling these sounds, and it's beautiful and inspiring. But at the same time, it wasn't inspiring like I have to go home and learn to do that. I realized that's a lifetime of really dealing with a lot of that, and really also conceptualizing the music around those sounds, which is what that's the key. Is like great music comes from sound. Like, you can't separate what Miles Davis plays from his sound. You can't separate what Train or Charlie Parker play from their sound. Monk from his. It's the sound of the way he hits one note on the piano that his entire musical world comes from there. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. I mean, obviously, when I say you're playing from your sound, it's like learning how to say, what does my voice sound good saying? That's what I should say. I should learn to speak around what the kind of things my voice can do. But of course, I'm also going to train my voice to do things that it couldn't do a few months ago, hopefully, or a year ago. That's the point of expanding, but also learning to play within yourself. Like, when you try to have someone else's sound, it's always forced, and you never sound like someone else, because if they're naturally doing that, that's something that's attractive to you. So the whole thing about trying to sound like someone else, except as an ear training exercise, is kind of a dog chasing their own tail kind of action. But like I say, some people, that's the game, and they just think, I'm going to try to get as much together of other people and all the things I like, because the freedom of just purging that and being myself isn't really I'm not ready for that.
Right.
It's different. There's all types of people. That's why there's all types of musicians.
Well, that's actually that's an excellent answer. I do appreciate it. It's like, you're not for or against, it's just not for you.
I really think the whole beauty of everything is like, people doing what they want to do, people
Right.
doing them. You know, once you hear someone being themselves, that's what's powerful. You know, Jim Hall he got into it, you know, towards the end of his career, and he had a bunch of boxes he would step on. I don't even think he really knew what they would do. He just was like, let me see. I mean, sometimes he did,
Yeah.
but he admitted, like, sometimes I just put it somewhere. I just set it and just play off that. Like, he was really in the moment of trying to surprise himself and then play off a sound. Like, but I think he was really moved to after hearing Frizzell and people like that, what they could do with it. He was just moved because, I mean, at that point he'd been playing the straight guitar through the amp for,
Right.
you know, what's that? You know, that would be 40 plus years at that point in the 1990s, right? So yeah, so he's just been doing it a long time, and he was like, I'm ready for another thing, and yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, that's not what made him great. What made him great was the curiosity to even do it. You know what I mean? So, but speaking for myself, like as a young musician in the mid '80s, you know, kind of going to like jazz school and trying to come up, you know, and learn how to play, and the prevailing sound was the chorus, you know, the chorus sound, heavily
Yeah.
reverb chorus sound. I listened to ECM. I had cassettes of, one side was an ECM, uh, John Abercrombie Quartet. Other side was George Benson Cookbook. Like I had just this one cassette with two, you know, uh, com- completely varying attitudes and guitar approaches on the same cassette, and I would just turn them over and play one. And I really felt like, you know, hearing Benson, I would just rewind it and just listen to that. But, you know, I went through phases where I was listening to more. At first, I was listening more and more to the ECM ethereal thing, and I was into reverb or whatever. I'm just trying to, that's nice. It's very, you know, it kind of makes you slide around and all that stuff. And then I heard some other stuff that was much drier. And when I really got into the study of guitar players, I was just checking out that everyone that I loved, you know, going back to Charlie Christian, to Oscar Moore, Wes, Jim Hall, Jimmy Rainey, uh, everybody, Barney Kessel, Kenny Burrell, Grant Green, Benson, everyone. They all basically played some kind of box through some kind of amp, Joe Pass, whatever. They all, you know, they all played more or less the same, just like a piano player, you know, they all played the same pianos in that club. You know what I mean? That's just like, so it was a little bit more personal than that. Obviously, you could have your own thing and your own, but it was a guitar through an amp. And based on the strength of the personalities of the players that I just mentioned, all these, and I even left out a lot of people. I just can't think of them all so fast, but
That's a good list, though.
they all sounded different playing a box through an amp, you know, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So what is it that makes them sound different? The
We're
choice.
talking about a box. We're talking about a full-bodied guitar as opposed
That's
to
right.
a
You know,
solid
the hollow body. Nice, nice. Um, so that's it. And the difference was in their touch and their choices that they made and how they conceive of music. So while I was very much aware in the mid '80s that it's a reactionary move to like go back before there was Jimi Hendrix and before there was the flanger and the compressor and the, you know, all these, the phase shifter and all these different things, chorus, reverb, echo, delay, all these things that made me reactionary to a degree. But what I noticed was a lot of the people of my generation that were like, yeah, chorus, that's cool, let's plug into that. They kind of, there was a basic, everyone kind of sounded the same unless you could really play already and then enhance yourself with chorus, you know, like we were checking out Mike Stern and Pat Metheny and Schofield and all the people. It wasn't straight sounds, they were using some enhancements, some effects, and this is even before I got to hear Bill Frisell a lot, but the sound was out there, and it was great. I love to hear those guys play, but at the same time, as a young guy trying to learn how to play, I noticed that you plug into those things and there's a certain kind of modern, now we're kind of sound contemporary, but I just kind of felt like I want to get a sound out of the instrument. I want to, if I'm going to sound like myself, it's not going to be because of the chorus. And then I even, in a rare moment of like predicting, like, well, what if the chorus isn't the sound of 15 years from now? And you know, that kind of came to pass. I was kind of like, well, everybody's plugging in this chorus and turning it up, and what it does is hide how you're really phrasing. Because a lot of my friends, we would sit and play just acoustically, and that's where we could really hear
Right.
our own touch and our own, the kind of sound we make just from the guitar. Now the amp is important. You got to learn how to use the amp, of course, but
Right.
it's the amp enhancing the sound of your touch on the instrument. So
Well,
that's where I was coming from. I just was like, I'm going to try to get a sound out of the guitar, and I had my little 175 at that time, and played that guitar until I realized I needed something that had a little more sound to control, a little more overtones, a longer note. So I got an L5, but all the time realizing that I'm dealing with like what they used to do, like how they used to make,
right.
whatever. It's like an old recipe or something.
Right.
And I was but I still felt like the music I'm playing, like I said, doesn't call for me to have a flanger. It doesn't call for me. I mean, I could make it do that, but what am I listening to? I'm listening to swinging jazz music. I'm listening to horn players. They don't have choruses. Joe Henderson didn't have a chorus. Joe Henderson was just phrasing his ass off and playing beautiful notes and getting inside the music he was playing. So that was what attracted me more so than like, the guys with the gadgets, because I mean, that's cool. The guys with like I say, when you really know how to use them, Bill Frisell is like, that's genius. And Bill Frisell makes that work because he has a sound on the instrument.
Right.
Just him playing the guitar sound. I remember hearing Schofield not even plugged in. I was like, oh, that's not even distortion. That's just like the way he picks down there, and it's just like, okay. And hearing Pat Metheny too playing an acoustic guitar, that's a touch. It's like, it's not, those things are an enhancement to what's already a sound. So as a young guy, I kept having this kind of thing reaffirmed, especially when I got to meet Jim Hall and saw him make this sound up close, like barely even plugged into the amp, just playing the guitar. It's like, that's
Jim Hall is an interesting. You mentioned him because in talking with Roger Sadowski, who built used to take care of Jim's D'Acquisto, and he also built Jim's replacement for the D'Acquisto so that he could leave it at home, said that Jim would use a pedal later on in his career, and he'd stick it on a chair next to him. It wasn't even on the floor. and he'd like mash it with his hand, and the other thing I loved about Jim Hall, other than he was born in Buffalo, New York, as I was, is in one of his lesson VHSs back in the day, he would talk about being experimental. He detuned his guitar.
Yep. You talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, detune the guitar and then try to make music out of that. Try to find a meaning. And I thought, wow, all right. So he definitely was a forward-thinking guy for sure.
He studied modern classical composition. He didn't go to school for jazz. He went to school for classical composition.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, he was like, he had some ears that were going towards the future for sure. So he would talk about that, and as a teacher too, like just detune it, just give yourself something else it's all about breaking yourself out of your little habits. It's all about, I'm holding this thing, so I do this, and I'm playing this song, so I do this. He just wanted just take yourself out of the moment where that's even an option, so that's true. That's not conservative. That's the opposite.
Not at all. No.
Taking a chance on, I don't even know what this is going to sound like.
Right. Yeah. And try to make sense of it.
But he was a Zen master. So I mean, yeah, that's the thing. The touch that when I got to see guys play, see Gene Bernstein play, and like the touch, it's like that's what makes them personal. So the pedals just never really, they just never called me. But like I say, I love when other guys do it.
Yeah. Great answer. What are you doing right now? What's going on with you? What can let's tell people what you're up to.
Well, I'm getting ready to go to Europe. If all goes well with Larry Goldings and Bill Stewart, we just put out a CD on Smoke Sessions label. Just came out like less than a month ago, and we did some dates in the good old United States, and about 2 weeks, and then we had like a week off, and now we're going to Europe, UK and Europe. It's a cooperative trio. So
you got Bill Stewart and Larry Goldings and yourself. I mean, it's
you got to make it down to the Velvet Note. We got to hook that up in January. I think we're going to be hopefully doing some more dates on the East Coast somewhere. We have a gig in like Roanoke, Virginia, that they're going to try to book some dates around. So
wow,
That's the South, right? Just keep going south. We'll hit Atlanta.
Just keep coming. You got Roanoke. You got about 8 or 9 hours by car to get down here. But
maybe there's one gig in between, which would be great.
Yeah, Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah, that's on our.
There's a
Charlotte, but Durham. There's a place in Durham.
The place in Durham,
9, yeah.
Place in Charlotte, and there are places that I'm sure would love to have you. I'm sure
we were booked to go to Durham, but that's the tour that got canceled 2 years ago. I mean, everything. So,
well, there is a happening place, in Charlotte. There's a happening place down in Hilton Head Island if you're going to be down here. So,
we got to do the Carolinas and south of the Mason-Dixon tour. Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it. Baker with Peter Bernstein, virtuoso Peter Bernstein. And
thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
And we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, and thanks for being so open about the subject of pedals.
Of course, we all got to plug in. It's just a question of how much.
There you go. we all got to plug in. I like that. Peter, God bless you, man. Take care. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.